right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We'd like to hear your views on especially the budget, which is the main conversation we're going to have. It's going to be read out tomorrow. It's a 3.31 trillion shillings budget. Are we living beyond our means? What's in there for Wanjiku? What do you expect? At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Daybreak. But first, I'd like to talk about a few political issues. I'll spare the economists from the political commentary, but they will talk about the issue around the fuel prices and what's going on in the fuel shortage as well. And shortly, in just a bit, but let me first introduce my guest. Dr. Makali Mulu is here, member of Budget and Appropriations Committee and member of Parliament for Kitui Central. Thank you for making time. Honorable Jude Jomo is also here, member Finance and National Planning, and also MP for Kiambu. Asante sana for making time. Joy Kiru, a lecturer and economist, is also with us in studio. Asante sana for making time. And Reginald Kadzutu, CEO, Amana Capital, will be joining us in just a bit from the UK on Zoom shortly. You know, the Standard has focused on the painful budget, they call it. That's what we're going to talk about in just a bit. But first, Daily Nation, Ruto versus the state. Honorable Njomo, I'll start with you on this. What do you make of this standoff between the Ruto versus the state? Is this sensationalizing it, or is this just a political season where it's no holds barred?
I think Ruto is just taking his rightful position as the leader of opposition in this country. As you have seen in his utterances in the last couple of days, he's really suiting that position of oversighting the government. The only problem is that he's oversighting the government while he is still number 2 in the same government that he's oversighting. But come next year, come date after August 9th, he shall have his official position as the leader of opposition, the role that he's now mimicking. He will have it rightfully as the leader of opposition. And it shows, it is quite clear that he will suit that role.
Honorable Mulu, who is fooling who here? Because when the second in command also has a few negative things to say about a government, who is fooling who here?
Yeah, thank you, Trevor, for hosting us. I think as you rightly ask, somebody must be fooling one another here, because when you look at what is happening, you know, Ruto and team, they want to assume the official position in the House. Although in the House we don't have official position. These days we just have the minority side of the House. We call it that way. But they are doing that when they are still in the government. And in an ideal situation, Trevor, what should have happened is Ruto and team should have resigned from the government. And then they should now be able to talk from outside the government, saying the things they are saying today. But you know what is happening? They are enjoying all the trappings of power. They're having all their meetings in the official deputy president's residence, which is actually paid by the taxpayers of this country. They are criticizing the government from the same place. Most of them are enjoying all the government cars. They are enjoying their allowances. Even when they travel on government allowances. So I think really is what I call doublespeak. It's unfortunate that this is happening, and it happens in developing countries, mostly where democracy is still growing, because in a really grown democracy, this would not happen. People would just resign, say we don't believe in this government, and since I don't believe in the government, I have no business talking about this government when I'm a member of this government. Okay. So I think we are really seeing the normal politics we play as Kenyans, where people don't respect and the values we believe in. To some extent, to me, I think they are inverted. They are not really the normal. You know, Trevor, if you believe in something, you should live in that thing you believe in. Yeah. So we say different things with our mouths, but our heart is believing something different.
All right. Yeah. Joy, I'll spare you from the political commentary, but there's something that has been going on from an economist perspective. No respite yet over fuel shortage. What do you read in this fuel shortage that has grappled the country lately? Is it artificial? What's going on?
It's created by us. By the policies we make. In the 21st century, and in an economy like Kenya, direct subsidies are not the way to go in terms of running an economy. And I know if you look at it, how you explain a subsidy, you're saying that, you know, we want to make it cheaper, we want to make it better for the people. And therefore we pay those who are marketing oil products so that they can be able to sell it cheaper and Kenyans can afford. But let's go back to the history of that. in fact, if you look at how we did this, it happened at a time when you didn't quite expect it to happen. It happened during the COVID period when the oil prices were actually a bit depressed. And at that particular time, this petroleum development levy was about, is it 40 cents? 40 cents per litre, and at that particular time they raised it to 5 shillings 40. That is 1,350% increase in the name of creating a kitty to subsidize fuel prices should they go up.
Yeah.
And they created this kitty. And the last time things were getting out of hand was when now the COVID period started, it started getting a little bit better and industries were getting back to work. And now the reality came in because, this subsidy only kicks on when the oil prices go beyond $50 per barrel.
Yeah.
And during the COVID period, we're way below that. Then now when you are facing out COVID and oil prices started going up, now this kitty had to be used.
Yeah.
And the last time I checked, when fuel was about 122 shillings, sometimes in 21 per litre, and Kenyans were going to Uganda to buy fuel because it was cheaper there. And there was this question of what is raising these prices? And I counted up to about 7 levies on fuel.
Yeah.
7 levies. Excise duty, petroleum development levy, petroleum regulatory levy, railway development levy, import declaration fee, VAT, and adulteration levy, all those on one product.
Yeah.
In essence, when fuel, at that particular point, about 50% of the price of fuel was actually because of these levies.
Yeah.
Question. Can we do it better? And then now, these subsidies that we put in place to cushion Kenyans, we realize, just like we have so many other pending bills, we think that this is just business as usual. We can refuse to pay them, and we haven't paid the counties. What have they done? We haven't paid the Council of Governors. What have they done? We haven't paid so-and-so. What have they done? So again, you think you can play with the money of people who think that who literally run this country?
Yeah.
Who literally, because now, so they say, okay, you think you can play with us? Then see what we can do to you. They cripple the economy.
Yeah.
The costs incurred in the last 2 weeks are immense. Completely. It's like wiping away the gains people had made.
Yeah.
The time that people have not worked, lost businesses. This subsidy thing should be rethought.
Okay.
Because I believe looking at these levies, there could be a better way to do things.
Okay. Where do we go from here? Because there seems to be, the president himself signed a supplementary budget for this, but still there's no respite.
I'm just wondering where you are excusing Joy from politics, and she's doing tough politics, As
the rate of fuel is based on facts. This is not about politics.
Trevor, I think we need really to relook at the way our petroleum business is structured. Because at the top of this petroleum business, we have our multinationals who do not have any interest in our country. They will do anything. Their only interest is to make profit. They make profit and siphon it back to their countries. We have seen that things that they have done. What is happening right now is that the multinationals are arm twisting the government because their policies that they want to have changed. So they want to ground this country so that their policies can be put in place. And this is something that our country should resist with the strongest force that they can. The fuel that we have shortage, it's in their tanks, in their depots, but they are refusing to release it until the government is twisted to agree with some of the changes that they want. And they started slowly, putting things in place, And if we don't change this now, they can ground this country like they want to do it with this.
What changes do they want?
Fuel shortage. Just like what he said, is this subsidy, the fund that is created. If you remember in the old days, before this program was before that fund was put in place, the multinationals would decide how they want to sell their products. They would wake up today, they increase the fuel, 2 days later they increase, and when the international barrel prices go down, they never used to go down. They never used to decrease the pump prices. And this is where the government came in with this subsidy program, so that IPRA which was then had another name, would now regulate the prices of fuel so that we do not have, because if you do not control the prices of fuel, that affects every other business, every other price of product is affected by the fuel prices. And that is why now the controls came in. Unlike any other sector of the economy where we have a free economy where people sell according to the market forces, this was disallowed by the government because of the effect it has on the other sectors. Now, if we do not control our multinationals, they will twist the government. It is very, very sad, because if you get into the intricacies of how they do business, unlike other areas where we have manufacturers, we have wholesalers, we have retailers, the multinationals would like to do everything. And they have even actually killed the other people who are involved. The dealers who we have running petrol stations are hanging on a string because all their profit has been eaten by multinationals. The time has come when our ministry has to put the foot down and make sure that the multinationals are regulated and are working according to our laws.
Yeah.
They may be controlling a lot of money in our economy.
Yeah.
But this country belongs to Kenyans. It does not belong to the multinationals. I am very, very sad that sometimes they go into even infringing into rights of people they have employed. Okay. I know some companies who are having a program they call a young dealership program, where they say that they are helping Kenyans to build their business.
Yeah.
So they help them to save a few cents of what they are supposed to make in their program. But every time they see like these people are almost succeeding, they make sure that they eat into their product. They eat into their profits so that they do not succeed. So I think we need to have people who will look closely into these multinationals.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to become giants that can even damage the economy of our country. People who can stop the development of our country.
Okay. Honorable Mulu, is this a case of sabotage or poor planning?
I think a combination of both.
Yeah.
You know, Trevor, if you look at what is happening, is that, as my colleague Jomo is saying, the issue of multinationals, I think there is to some extent I can see some arrangement of a cartel. You know, they are not very many, and they can easily sit on a round table like this one and agree on how to make sure that they control the market. So what has happened is, even though it's not a one multinational, but they have a bit of monopolistic kind of behavior, because they know they control the market and they control what a large share of the market. They can actually even engage in holding, and I think that's what I'm saying now. Like you are saying, that would be sabotage, where they sit and agree, let's order our stock in our depots so that we starve the market from the supply side. Because what happens is that then the price will have to go up. But on the side of planning, I think the government must also take part of this blame. You know, we have what we call the Fuel Stabilization Fund. And it has been in the papers, it's public knowledge, that there has been misapplication on part of these funds, which are supposed to make sure that when the prices of fuel go beyond what is expected in terms of the market price, then the government comes in to support, to ensure that prices don't really end up adding Kenyans. So, Trevor, I think as a government, we also need to get it right in terms of planning. For example, you saw yesterday, after signing of the supplementary budget, the government had to pump addition about 34 billion. So we stabilize our prices. More so the pump prices, because that's where the problem is. So I see both cases, that in terms of our planning, those who are in this industry from the government side need to get their act together so that they are able to project well the demand side of this equation, so that they can say in the next 5 months, this is kind of, in terms of fuel, this is what we require. For us to have that kind of demand met, this is the level of subsidies we require to as a government. So that even at the level of even budgeting, you factor in the right amounts. Because like now, when you look at what is happening, the reason why some of them are not able to supply is because the government owes them billions of shillings, which they have not been paid. And they are saying, pay us, then we buy fuel and we put it in the market. which means that there has been that gap. And I think that's why we're getting it wrong. That if we had approved our supplementary budget earlier as a government, then it means they will have not, that gap where they are saying we can't supply, and then we don't have the product, will not be there. Okay. So it will have been a kind of a smooth running of the industry. And basically that's what we really need to get, so that it's a combination of both. The government takes part of the blame, but I think the multinationals also, the issue of holding, to me, that's sabotage of the economy. Okay. I should not be allowed.
Joy, do you agree with the members of parliament in the House? Because I know you look at it from an economist perspective. Theirs might have a tinge of politics now.
You are lucky you've got two strong, competent politicians who don't need any assistance. So I'm looking at it from the technical perspective. It's all about bad decisions. Subsidies, direct subsidies from government always bring all these perverse intentions or bad motives. And they've got ethical issues. Golden Bank scandal started with a very innocent word, subsidy. That if you import gold, if you are importing anything, the government subsidizes you so that we're able to import more, and finally you bring the foreign currency into the country and the economy grows. But see where it headed. Direct subsidies are proved not to be the way to go. And therefore introducing one in an economy like Kenya, it's already bringing complications in already complicated situation. And that's a technical perspective. And any economist will tell you that direct subsidies are not the way to go. They should have tried to stabilize fuel prices through other ways. Taxation issues, especially taxation and things like that. That would have worked better than a direct subsidy.
Because that's what Mais Moses from Eldoret is asking. He says, kindly ask the panel, what is the purpose of taxing fuel, then providing subsidy? Can you ask the members of Budget Committee, what is the net off of subsidy and tax on fuel?
Quite a good question.
Before I come to Joy to answer, I'll start with you. Yes, Mulu.
You know, normally what would happen is that there's what we call tax administration. And the government at times, to me, I see this as an easier way of getting money. For example, you know, taxes on fuel are normally done per liter. So anytime you draw a liter, the tax is part of that cost, that pricing. And it's easier to collect. Actually, this is the easiest way to collect money. So you find that in most cases, government would want, in terms of administration, this is a very cheap way of collecting money. But at the same time, you must also look at it this way. Normally, who would go to a petrol station to draw fuel? It's not the poorest of this country. It's more so the middle level and the rich. So there's also the progressive nature of taxation, where you want to tax the rich more so that they meet the needs of the poor. So what would happen normally is that because, you know, when it comes down to buying, everybody would buy, including paraffin, which really keeps most of our low-level income earners. That's what they use mostly. So when you apply a tax, you'll have tax the rich more by drawing the fuel, but when you get the money, then through the subsidies you provide, you're even able now to allow the poor also access that product. Otherwise, if you left it very expensive, then it means when something like paraffin will be very expensive, and then that will affect now our low income. So it's a way of balancing, balancing the process. But it's a very interesting question.
I want to disagree with the professional. Because to me, I don't look at this as subsidy. This is a stabilization fund, where the government, when the prices are low, charges a little bit higher and puts it in a fund so that when the prices are very high, it subsidizes using the same fund, not using the government fund. Unlike what happened in the fertilizer a week ago, because the world prices of fertilizers are very high. So the government is subsidizing to make fertilizer cheaper for farmers. But this fuel business, the government has saved from the same fuel and accumulated into a fund. And now they use this fund to reduce the prices because now the prices are very, very high. So I wouldn't look at it like this is really government subsidizing the price of fuel. But now, what happens when the fuel prices continuously becomes high and depletes this stabilization fund? It is time now to make tough decisions because the world prices, the world fuel prices have gone up. The war in Ukraine have changed a lot of economic dynamics, and the fuel prices are up. So the time has come when somebody has to make a tough decision and say now, because the world prices are high, the government cannot continue. When you put 100 shillings in your vehicle, the government puts 20 for you. It may not afford. So it has to make a tough decision and let me face the situation as it is, so that I can also decide on how I'm going to use my fuel according to my how I can be able to afford it. Okay. So I think the time to make that tough decision has come.
But you know, Trevor, just for information, you know, we are not saying different things, we're saying the same thing. If you look at what Madam has read through in terms of levies, the stabilization fund is just one of them. It's actually a whole list of levies. So while we agree that there is that stabilization fund, but there are very many other levies which are imposed on the fuel for purposes of ensuring that you tax Kenyans who are rich more to take care of the Kenyans who are...
But Joy, is that the argument? Because even these Kenyans who you say are not as rich, they're still impacted by the prices of fuel, by one way or another. Either the cost of living goes up, even transportation, whether they're using a matatu or not, they still end up paying more.
I wanted to let that statement pass when he made it the first time. But now that he has repeated it, I think I have no choice but to just make a brief comment. In the first place, all these levies affect everybody, rich and poor, even directly. Kerosene is a fuel. Gas is a fuel. If the poor are not supposed to be using kerosene and gas, then how do we expect the poor really to be in this country? How do we really see them? So we cannot, as responsible citizens, should not think that those who got to buy kerosene and LPG gas should be the rich. That should be the way to go if we are to improve the livelihoods and improve the health of our people. And secondly, just like you've already pointed out, I don't need to whatever, this is a diesel-run economy. The moment the price of fuel goes up, everything, manufacturers will pass the cost to the consumers. So all of us, I need together, rich or poor, we suffer equally. But the poor suffer more.
Okay, and there's another issue here from Babana Rasha. He says fuel in landlocked Ethiopia, a country without crude oil reserves or a port, is cheaper than Kenya. It's 60 shillings a litre there. Is it the cartels who are controlling Kenya's oil industry? He asks Joy. How is it possible that fuel passes here, goes all the way to Ethiopia, and it is still cheaper there?
Like I said, it's the taxation policies in these countries. Like I said, these levies are taking about almost 50% of the actual prices, meaning that you could still be retailing at the same place if you worked around the same range, if you worked around our levies and taxation on this product.
Okay.
So it's a choice on how much we are taxing this. And just like that viewer asked, why should we tax and give a subsidy? We have to make a decision, because even me, I'm asking like the same viewer. I don't have a question to that. These are the people who can answer us, and they should really give us the answers why they are doing it that way.
Okay. Let me bring in Reginald on this before you take a break and start talking about the budget. Reginald, before you joined in, we were talking about the issue of the fuel shortage. What do you see into it, and where does the problem really lie, and what are the possible solutions?
Thanks, Trevor. The fuel shortage is pretty much what I would call the market fighting back. When you try to disrupt the normal laws of economics of demand and supply, which are supposed to then come up with a price. So you have supply, you have demand, which they're supposed to equate to come at an equilibrium price. If you come in with things like taxes, and in this case subsidies, ideally what you're doing, one, is shifting the price from the mechanics of the people who want to consume and the people who want to supply. So and in this case, trying to cushion the consumer. So in essence, you're putting a price cap. If I am a supplier and I cannot determine the price based on my costs, my cost of transporting the fuel or product to the market, and give it at a price which I believe the consumer is going to get sufficient utility and is willing to pay for it, and you tell me I can only sell it at this price, it reaches a point where you actually create shortages because the supplier does not want to supply. It does not make, should understand they're not running a child they are running business, and their pure motive is to maximization. Expect oil marketers to be saints, because the CEOs report to a board, their KPIs are based on purely on profit. So when the government started, I mentioned this before, that subsidies the way to control fuel in a country. There are better ways, and the way is the fuels, so that when fuel prices are higher, you relieve from so in this case, we don't want to supply is limited.
Reginald, I seem to be having a bit of a challenge with your internet connection. Kindly check that, then I'll give you a chance to give your submissions on this. Honorable Jomo, there's a question that was posed by Joy here, saying that you are the members of parliament and you're supposed to cushion Kenyans by having favorable policies. How did you let this pass? And the economist Malela here says, good morning, Trevor. The reason why fuel is expensive in Kenya is punitive taxes. Taxes alone is at 44%. Look at the landing cost and the retail cost at stations. We must address our taxes. Would you say then, as legislators, you've somehow failed Kenyans when it comes to this issue of taxes on petroleum products especially?
I listened to the PS Petroleum, Andrew, the other day, and he said, for the last couple of years, nothing has changed in the way taxation regime has happened. The way they have been disbursing the fuel, what do we call it? The levy.
Yeah.
Or the way they have been stabilizing the fuel, nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is the way the multinational companies are reacting.
Yeah.
They want to change things. So even if we want to change the tax regime, yeah, we must also change the way the people are, our multinationals are behaving. Now, these tax regimes were not, this was not done yesterday. This is how we have been for quite some time. And when we are doing budget, we look at two sides. One is how we are going to spend the money. On the other side, how are we going to get this money? You're talking about fuel being cheaper in Ethiopia. Maybe if they don't get their money from fuel, they get it from somewhere else. If you look at their budget across board, there are some products in Ethiopia which are much more expensive than in Kenya because we don't tax them as much as they are done in Ethiopia. And in my language, we say you don't build your house the way your neighbor has built. Every house is built according to the need of that particular country. We get a lot of revenue from fuel to pay for our budget. And we must also be cognizant of the fact that as a country, the country needs money. We need to finance our budget. That money has to come from somewhere. If it doesn't come from fuel, it will also come from another area. Do we want it to come from unga? Do we want to increase the prices of unga? Do we want to increase other essential products cost? So at the end of the day, we must finance our budget. Okay. That money must come from somewhere. Okay. And that is what we are mandated by our constitution as a parliament to tell the government, this is where you're going to get the money. Okay. And that is why every year we have what we call committee of supply, where we sit down as parliament and decide this is where the government is going to make to get its money to finance the budget.
Okay, it's a good thing that you talked about where to get the money from, and that's the point where you take the break and then come back and talk about where do we get 3.31 trillion shillings in the budget. That's what we're doing in just a bit. It's going to be read out tomorrow. The Standard is calling it a painful budget. We're calling it the legacy budget. It's President Uhuru Kenyatta's final budget. It's being read out tomorrow. We'd like to hear your views. What are your expectations? Where do you hope the government focuses on more? At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag DayBreak. That in just a bit.